introduction, Sherry. Can you guys in the back hear me? I have sometimes speaks quietly. Okay, great. So the story of how I got to YouTube, I think I'll start a little bit earlier on as everyone else did, really starts back to when I was a kid. And when someone asks you, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so I'm sure you guys have all been asked that question. When I was a kid, I had a really tough time answering because I told my mom on Thursdays I want to be a dance teacher. On Tuesdays, I actually want to be a musician because I loved playing the piano. On Fridays, I want to be Rainbow Bright because I just thought, who wouldn't want to bring more color to the world? So I had this really crazy answer whenever people asked. And she said, well, you know, what are you going to do on Saturdays? You can't just leave it at that. So my mother was always encouraging me to think about the ways that I could impact the world, the things that I could do. And when I really thought about what I wanted to be, I wanted to be a teacher. So in all of these things, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could share my knowledge with other people? I wanted to be a dance teacher. I actually want to be a music teacher. And so I thought about being in the classroom, and my mother said, well, there's a lot of ways that you can teach. You can mentor people on a one-on-one basis. You can teach in a classroom of 30 or 40 students. But she's a doctor, and she teaches her residents on a daily basis, and she teaches a lot of people in her practice. And so it really got me thinking at a young age about how do you scale one person? How do you have an impact beyond just the people that I interact with personally? And so as I got older, I started having experiences where I felt like, wow, I'm actually learning from a lot of other influences around me, even things like TV, and I realized the power of the media. So I grew up watching The Cosby Show, that probably dates me, and I felt like I learned just as much from Rudy Huxtable and how she dealt with peer pressure and the things that the Cosby kids dealt with, as I did from a lot of the things I was learning from my teachers. So when I got to college, I started teaching on the side. I taught arts to Cambridge School students. I don't have an MIT connection, but I have a Cambridge connection. And I continued on that track of thinking about the power of the media. And recently, you know, Bill Gates said, the world has yet to harness the power of the media as a force for good. And I think that really captures what I've been trying to do with my entire career. So at NBC, I worked on a variety of shows that I felt like were bringing information to the world to impact and to positively impact what people were thinking and learning. I worked for a film festival where we were selecting the films that were that were being shown to a worldwide audience. And so for that, it was about how do you amplify the voices, especially from a documentarian's perspective, that were really interesting and issues that really needed to be, we really needed to shine a spotlight on. And so that sort of brings me, you know, I've had a lot of different entertainment types of experiences in my career, but really what I feel like is most meaningful is my job here at YouTube. Because, well, first of all, how many of you guys have watched a YouTube video? Okay. How many have watched a YouTube video in the last day? Okay. That's pretty crazy, right? The fact that people can reach a global audience just by uploading a YouTube video. What I do is I work with our education partners. So what I think is so interesting is anybody can really upload a YouTube video. I mean, a lot of times I'm sure what you guys are seeing is potentially comedy or music or sports. How many of you guys have actually learned something by watching a YouTube video? That's okay. So a lot of people don't think about YouTube per se. They think about first, you know, dogs on skateboards or, you know, cat videos. But actually, we're all learning from this incredible video treasure trove. And the fun part about my job is that I get to work with all the people that are creating a lot of this content. I get to work with the people at TED. We launched TED Ed earlier this year. I get to work with Sal Khan from Khan Academy. I get to work with new up-and-coming teachers that might not teach in the classroom, but that are teaching worldwide audiences, like John and Hank Green, who do this wonderful channel called Crash Course. And so I think there's this really interesting trend, or not necessarily trend, but this movement towards YouTube being a place where you can both learn from a variety of people and a variety of expert opinions, but you can also, as a teacher or as somebody who has expertise, you can reach a worldwide audience. And so that, I think, is really impactful when you think about the ways that you will learn going forward in your futures. You're already very talented. I can tell just from, you know, your your peers that were up here. But I challenge you to think about the ways that you can make an impact, whether it's through education or whether it's through your entrepreneurship. I think that learning will be different in the sense that you are empowered. You will have access that I didn't have access to. You have access not just to video, but to all of these other materials through the internet. And I think that if there's one other thing I want to tell you about YouTube is that it's full of entrepreneurs. So these people that are starting channels, it could be educational related, but it could be in these other genres that I mentioned earlier. They're very entrepreneurial. They're finding interesting ways to fund themselves, whether it's through Kickstarter or through finding friends to fund their channels or work with them to create these channels. They're also building their own businesses on the platform, and I just think when you think about what you want to do in the future, think about where you can have an impact. And I truly believe that if there's one kind of guiding force in my life that I've been thinking about is, that I've had and I've long held is, you really want to live a life by design and not default. So don't just do what you think you're supposed to do. Think about why you're doing it and think about who you're doing it with, because that, at the end of the day, is what's most powerful and what's been most powerful for me. You can be entrepreneurial. I work for a big company. YouTube is actually quite a big company. So I think, I encourage you to be entrepreneurial every day and just have the guts to go and pursue those passions that you discover for yourselves. Thank you.